Hi, my name is Nancy Earls, and I am the current president of the Coginchaug Valley Education Foundation. We are extremely proud to present this evening's program, which we call the Coginchaug Trailblazers, because they truly are. In a minute, you will meet 11 illustrious Coginchaug Regional High School graduates who have graciously accepted our invitation to share their stories with all of us, what they're doing in the world, and how they got there. We think that you will find these presentations as inspirational as we have. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, and I'll see you at the end of the show.
Hello, everybody. My name is Erin McKern. I'm formerly known as Erin Curtis, and I am a Coginchaug graduate with the class of 2008. I'm honored today to speak to you a little bit about where I've gone since graduation, the path that I've taken, and maybe offer a little somewhat solicited advice to those of you who may be thinking about where the next few years may take you. And before I forget, my favorite food at the fair is either the cheeseburger from Benchwarmers or fried dough with sauce and cheese from literally anyone who will sell it to me. I am currently an intelligence analyst with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. As such, I must include a fun disclaimer that the views expressed in my remarks are my personal views and do not necessarily reflect the views of the FBI, the Department of Justice, or the United States. While the FBI special agents are the ones that you tend to see on TV, they get the fun roles in shows like Criminal Minds or The Americans. Intelligence analysts work alongside them to analyze intelligence from all sources to help decision makers make better informed decisions. It's an amazing job that lets me stay true to my nerdy self and protect people by finding answers to complicated questions. So how did I get here? After I graduated from Coginchaug, I went to UConn, where I double majored in English and political science. In my junior year at UConn, I took a class in national security, and I was instantly hooked. I hadn't ever met anybody who worked in the intelligence community or on national security issues, and it seemed to me that it perfectly combined a lot of my interests in writing and international affairs and good spy stories. And so I was hooked from there. After graduating UConn, I got an internship with the State Department. After that, I was accidentally an accountant for a while. I'm still not sure how that happened. But that was my bridge for when I was applying for master's programs here in Washington, D.C. Eventually, I started my master's at the George Washington University, and I majored in security policy studies with specializations in weapons of mass destruction and transnational organized crime because they sounded fun. At the same time, I found another internship with the Department of Homeland Security, where they brought me on full-time as an intelligence analyst about 6 years ago. A few years later, I applied for a job with the Bureau. I got accepted somehow. I went to Quantico for training, and here I am. I have a few pieces of advice for those of you who don't know what you want to do, or you're feeling apprehensive about making up your mind about your future, or where you want to go, or how do you get there. It's okay. That's completely okay. I felt the exact same way when I was your age. You don't need to have everything figured out before you graduate. You don't have to have it figured out by the time you're 20. You don't have to figure out by the time you're however old you happen to be. Nobody ever figures out anything anyway. So give yourself some breathing room and embrace that there's always going to be uncertainty. Be honest with yourself and with others. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses. They're different for everybody, but they can change over time. I was always a huge nerd growing up. Well, I still am, but I stopped thinking of it as a weakness or something embarrassing and started thinking of it as a strength. And now I get paid to be a know-it-all, so it's worked out pretty well. Lastly, my final piece of advice is to always ask for help. I bet many of you come from good stoic New England stock where you think you can do everything by yourself. You probably can, but you don't have to. No matter what you're going through, what plans you're making, if you're thinking about school or careers or relationships or where you live or how you're perceived. Remember, you can always ask for help, ask for opinions, for guidance, for anything. So with that, I will say do your homework, ask questions, and please don't break the law. Thank you, and good luck.
Hi, fellow Blue Devils. I'm Andy Czaja, class of 1994. I'm a professor of geology, paleontology, and astrobiology, but more on that later. First, let me tell you how I got where I am. So, I got interested in science back in high school, and I decided to go to college and study biology. I went to UConn, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So at some point, I found out about environmental science and thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll take that. So I switched majors to environmental science, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So as I went along, I thought, well, maybe I'll be a park ranger or some sort of naturalist that I can use my biology and environmental science background for. But then, after graduating, I was working in an ecology lab at UConn, and I found out about the relatively new field of astrobiology, or the study of life outside of Earth, the life beyond Earth. And I thought, that sounds fascinating. I want to do that. So I also, at the time, started thinking I kind of wanted to be an astronaut. I thought that could be obviously very exciting. And I thought maybe I could do it. And so I looked into graduate schools, and I decided to go to graduate school and was accepted to graduate school at the University of California, Los Angeles, and to study geology and paleontology. Because one of the ways you study astrobiology and the life outside of Earth is to understand early life on Earth. So I really wanted to study the most ancient life on Earth that's billions of years old. And so I went to grad school for that. And throughout that time, I sort of, my desire to be an astronaut kind of waned, but I still really liked science and research, and I wanted to continue doing that and teach. So I decided to stay in academia. And so after I got my degree, I was lucky enough to get a postdoctoral position studying early life at the University of Wisconsin. And then, after that, a faculty position at the University of Cincinnati, where I've been since 2012. So in my faculty position here at the University of Cincinnati, I get to do some really cool research, and I get to study ancient life on Earth. I'm talking life billions of years old, microorganisms. And that allows me to travel to some really cool places around the world. I've been to Australia, I've been to South Africa, I've been to Greenland most recently to study ancient life. And I also get to do some cool lab work. So the work I do is both field-based and lab-based, and that's what I really like about what I do. I get to do a diversity of things. I'm also interested in, as I said, astrobiology. I'm interested in searching for life beyond Earth. And as part of that, I recently was added to the science team for the Mars 2020 mission. That's the mission that includes the Perseverance rover that just launched earlier this year, launched in July of 2020, and is going to arrive in February of 2021 at Mars, and then the really cool science can get going. And I was added to the team because of my expertise in early life on Earth to help look for evidence of ancient life on Mars, to know what to look for and how to look for it and what sort of samples we want to collect. Because that mission, it's not only going to look for evidence on the surface, it's going to collect samples that NASA is planning to bring back later to study here on Earth. And in fact, the plan is to bring them back in about 10 years, maybe 11 years. So for you high school students, if you are interested in this field, you could be the ones who are actually looking at these samples when they come back in the 2030s. So my advice for the high school students is you don't have to know exactly what you want to do as soon as you finish high school, but it's good to have a plan, of course, but it's possible to make course corrections as you go. If anyone wants more information about what I do or just careers in academia, you can email me at andrew.czaja@uc.edu, or you can check out my website at andyczaja.com. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Anna Reeve. and I grew up in Durham, Connecticut, like many of you all watching this video. And I was asked if I could speak a little bit about different decisions I made post-graduating Coginchaug High School in 2007, and tell you a little bit about what I'm doing now. So I graduated in 2007, and when I was choosing a college to go to, I said, I want a huge university. I don't want to look anywhere in Connecticut, in the Northeast. I want something so different than the little town that I'd grown up in. And so I decided to go to University of Michigan for my freshman year. And I loved many things about University of Michigan, and I loved my courses. But I decided, you know what, at the end of the year, I wasn't sure that University of Michigan was the right choice for me. So I decided to take a year off from school after my freshman year. And that was something that I think surprised many people who knew me, because I'd kind of always gone on a very traditional path. And it was the first decision I made to go a little bit off of the expected path for me. And it was the best decision that I made. I ended up taking a gap year and doing an AmeriCorps program called City Year in Philadelphia. And so I was working at a high school, helping to support with guidance counseling needs, helping to do some SAT tutoring, and helping to run an after-school program at an elementary school. And I had an amazing year, and I met so many different people. And it was the first time, I think, for me, having grown up in Durham and having grown up in such a homogenous community, where I was really forced to understand and realize my white privilege, and talk about issues of race and inequality, and work in schools and live in a city. And I loved living in a city, and I loved working in schools, and I loved engaging in conversation about race and racial inequity. And so I decided to transfer to NYU and live in New York. And in high school, I thought I would never want to live in New York. I'd visited New York a few times. It was a huge city. There would be no college campus. It was not at all what I wanted. But by the time I was finished with my year off, I didn't want to go into a bubble anymore. And so I really wanted to be active in the city, where I was working part-time at a high school as a youth advisor, and I was going to school, and I was interning, and I was really kind of having a more real-world experience. And I absolutely loved it. So when I graduated from NYU, I decided that I wanted to go into teaching. And I was going to do a program, either New York City Teaching Fellows or Teach for America, that provided me with a master's degree, and I could start teaching right away. So I did Teach for America, which is another AmeriCorps program, and I ended up teaching at a very small school in Manhattan, and it was a high school. I was teaching 9th and 10th grade special education in English and in humanities. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it, but I also found it extremely challenging to be teaching students who really had never learned how to read and had made it all the way to high school. And so I wanted to go down and teach students that were younger. So I decided to move to a middle school, and I began teaching at a middle school, and then I moved up in school leadership, and I was coaching teachers, and I really loved my time. I spent 7 years working at the middle school, and then I just wanted to change. I'd been in New York 11 years, and I wanted to do something different. So when I was teaching at that small high school, an interesting thing about the high school, it was called the Facing History School, and it was using a curriculum that talked all about how people create divides between each other. And so there's we, and then there's they. And so we talk about us and then them, and we create these artificial divides between people. And so we were talking about and looking at different issues of genocide throughout history. We looked at the Rwandan genocide. We looked at genocide in South Africa. We studied the Holocaust with students, and they loved it. except race relations between Haitian American students and Dominican American students, which made up the majority of the student body at the high school, were really tense. And so my second year of teaching there, I was funded with a small group of teachers to go to Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic and study conflict and cooperation between the two countries. And I loved my time in Haiti, and I loved my time in the Dominican Republic, and I learned so much, and I built so many relationships. And one of the relationships I had was with a school director in Haiti. And so we continued, a small group of teachers and myself continued to support a school in Haiti, and we would go down to Haiti every school break we got in February and give professional development to the teachers and do projects and facilitate projects with students at the school in Haiti and students at our schools in New York. And then an opportunity was presented to me to move to Haiti and to work at a university in Port-au-Prince and work with the School of Education and help develop a program for teachers who were already in-service teachers teaching but had never received any formal training. So we were doing continuing, ongoing professional development for this group of teachers. So I decided that I was going to move for 1 year, and I moved into a little dorm room in this university where I barely got running water, sometimes had electricity, and I traveled all around Haiti, and I worked with a team of amazing Haitian trainers, and I would support my training team, and then they would go out and train teachers and train school directors and help them become better educators. So I was there for 3.5 years. I spent working at University of Quisqueya. I learned how to speak Haitian Creole. And now I am currently doing a combination of work both in the United States and in Haiti. Continuing to work on some teacher professional development and also working for a program called La Coginchaug, which I'm hoping you are going to be able to see a little clip of what this is after I'm done speaking. And I think about it as like a Haitian Creole Sesame Street. So I get to create and help contribute to thinking through multimedia education outlets for primary school children. So I'm currently working on creating 1st and 2nd grade science lessons that will act as radio lessons and like a radio show for students. And I'm also doing some consulting with a public health organization in Haiti, as well as working to support and coach teachers at an elementary school in Brooklyn, and give professional development to teachers both in New York City and in Los Angeles. So that is my unexpected path to where I am. And I feel incredibly grateful for all of the amazing opportunities that I've had, the people that I have met, the mentoring I've received along the way, the incredible cultural exchanges that I've had and still continue to have from my friendships and my professional relationships in Haiti. And I hope that you enjoy this little video, which shows you a quick preview of La Coginchaug, the Creole-like Sesame Street program for kids in Haiti. And I also hope you like this clip that explains a little bit more about Innoved, which was the university that I worked for when living in Haiti. I wish you all the best. To be a student this year is not easy. So as they say in Haitian Creole, Kembe la, that means hang on, and keep going strong. Wishing you all the best. Bye.
Nous croyons c'est un droit tout le monde gagne pour gagner accès à une éducation de qualité. C'est peut-être ça dans l'année 2013. Université Quisqueya te mette tête ensemble avec Ministère Éducation nationale et puis à Meurthe pour fonder Innoved. Dans 3 domaines qui se basent nous, Innoved a cherché transformer politique et pratique éducation en Haïti à travers développement professionnel, recherche et innovation. En dedans développement professionnel, nous faisons formation pour éducateurs dans tout le pays d'Haïti. tan kou profeseur yo, direkteur yo, entraîneur pédagogique epi formateur yo. Nou kwen yon apprentissage participatif ak support nan l'école yo esensyel pou asire yon impact positif sou succès apprenant yo. Kom membre nan yon nan pi bon université de qualité en Haïti, équipe nou gen expert nan domaine éducation qui sorti soit en Haïti, soit dans l'autre pays étranger. Nou a fait recherche dans plusieurs domaines, tant kou instruction dans langue maternelle et puis apprentissage socio-émotionnel. Comme yon laboratoire universitaire, nous avons continué à faire effort dans tester et implémenter un modèle d'éducation innovatif pour faire Timoun, l'école et la communauté vin pif. L'équipe innovate gen plus passé 30 professionnels qui travaillent ensemble avec 1 millier d'éducateurs au niveau national pour préparer environ 50 000 élèves qui vin leader pour génération qui vini yo.
Hi, my name is Zach Kowalski. I'm a graduate of the 2009 Coginchaug class, and my favorite Durham fair food is corn dogs. When I was in high school, my favorite subject was always science. I really enjoyed earth science and biology. I hated chemistry, but my favorite science class was physics with Mrs. Anderson. Realizing that we could use math and science to not only explain, but even predict how things would move in real life was really fascinating to me. I was so interested in the subject that learning the material didn't even feel like work, even though physics can be pretty hard. Everything about that class just clicked in my brain, and before I even finished the class, I had decided I was going to be a physics major in college. So fast forward to my second class in Intro College Physics at Dartmouth. Every single problem used multivariable calculus and partial differential equations. My professor had published his own theory about the collapse of the universe. We had a 4-question midterm and the median grade was a D. At that point, I was pretty sure I didn't want to be a physics major anymore. And I learned why certain college intro classes are called weed out classes. Despite this, I wasn't completely over physics. I was still interested in the concepts underneath all of those crazy equations. But being forced to imagine a 3-dimensional volume of electrical charges moving through a magnetic field didn't exactly match up with what made physics interesting to me in high school. It just didn't feel like real life anymore. So in search of a little bit of reality, I took a chance on an intro to engineering class. Turned out that mechanical engineering was exactly what I was looking for. I did have to take another chemistry class, which I still hated, and I still had to do a lot of math, but the math was always connected to something relatable. It's like when you're first learning addition, and somehow it's easier to add 2 apples than it is to figure out 1 + 1 = 2. Engineering is all about problem solving. You're usually trying to figure out how something works or how to prevent something from breaking. And as a kid who loved Nerf guns and Legos, those things really hit home for me. In addition to Nerf guns and Legos, I always loved drawing. I took art classes every year of high school, but I hadn't really planned on seriously pursuing art in college. I took one drawing class a few semesters in and then considered taking on an art minor. But after chatting with a friend about how important art was to me in high school, he said, "You don't minor in something that important to you." Although I was a bit late at that point, I knew my friend was right, and I decided I should double major in mechanical engineering and art. It was an extremely time-consuming combination, but I love the fact that I was always switching between left brain and right brain work. I used to say that when I get stuck on an engineering problem, it was time to go draw something. In college, I had 2 internships at pretty typical sort of industrial engineering companies. Both internships gave me really great experience, but there weren't a lot of opportunities to be creative. After those internships, I knew I needed a career where I could combine my engineering experience with my creative side. At the end of my second internship, I was offered a full-time job that would start after I graduated college. But I almost gave my mom a heart attack when I told her that I had to turn it down because I knew that it wasn't going to be the right career for me. Towards the end of college, I took a few classes in product design and I really enjoyed them. And it seemed like a really nice way to combine engineering and creative design. But a few months before graduating, two of my friends who had graduated the year before told me their roommate was moving out and they wanted me to live with them. I really appreciated the offer, but it came completely out of the blue right as I was about to graduate, and their apartment was in Manhattan and I didn't have a job. The idea of moving to literally the polar opposite of Durham was terrifying, but was also really exciting, so I decided to just go for it. I moved to New York City with no job and no plan, and to be honest, I wouldn't really recommend it. For 4 months, I looked for a job in product design, and I just lived off the money that I had saved from my internships. Back in college, a few years earlier, I had applied to internships at OXO, a company that makes kitchen products, but I was never able to even get an interview. So that summer, I applied again and landed an interview. But after the interview, I got rejected because I had no professional experience in product design. Luckily, just as my savings were running out, I was able to get a job at a design firm in Brooklyn called Pensa. I worked as a non-permanent independent contractor there for a while. It turned out that Pensa actually frequently worked with OXO, so I was able to gain really good experience, build a portfolio of work, and get to know some of the people who worked at OXO. With all of that, I was able to get my foot in the door, and I was finally hired as an engineer on the food storage product team at OXO. So now I've been working there for more than 5 years, and in a lot of ways, it is my dream job. My job is to help design new products. More specifically, my team works on any product that stores food, like pop containers, like this one. And we also work on barware products like cocktail shakers and corkscrews. So I work alongside designers, project managers, and factories to build a product from just an idea to something that is mass-produced and sold on shelves in stores everywhere. My responsibility is to make sure the product works well, that it can be manufactured easily, and that it can stand up to years of use in people's homes. So I do that through a combination of computer modeling and real-life testing. In the early stages of developing a new product, I do tons of testing on similar products that are already on the market to see what works and what doesn't. If we're making something completely new, I build what we call Frankenstein prototypes, which are typically like hacked up pieces of existing products plus some 3D printed parts. All gets glued together, and it just gives us a rough idea of how our product might work. Once we have an idea of what we want to make, I work with designers to create a 3D model of the product on a computer. This model gets changed literally hundreds of times as we create new prototypes, do more testing, and improve the design. Once we're happy with the design, I work with the factory to manufacture the product, and then there's more testing. I test those samples again and again and again to make sure that they meet OXO's standards. On average, this whole process takes about 2 years for an OXO product. So that means I'm usually working on 10 to 15 different products at once, all of them in completely different stages of development. And that definitely keeps things very interesting. I love that I get to be creative. A huge part of my job is solving really complex problems and brainstorming new ideas. But I also really enjoy the technical aspects of my job, like the 3D modeling and the rigorous testing. If I had to give one piece of advice to someone in high school right now, I would say pick your favorite subject in school and then whatever you like to do in your free time, and then figure out what career that combination of things might create. And you might not get it right the first time, but if you keep chasing what you're passionate about, you'll get there.
Hello, my name is Mark Vanderzee. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am a proud graduate of Coginchaug Regional High School, class of '93. Can't believe it has been that long. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank the Coginchaug Valley Education Foundation for giving me the opportunity to tell my story, and thank you for listening to it. So away we go, shall we? So I loved my experience at Coginchaug. I really did. But to be honest, regardless of how much I loved it, I really didn't have any idea of what I wanted to do once I left school. And to be honest, also, that didn't stress me out that much at the time. And I had really supportive parents who were great about wanting me to learn about myself and what I needed from life. And so I ended up going to Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts. Now, the motto of Clark University is Challenge Convention, Change the World. Why is that important? Well, that's important because in college I started to do a bunch of theater. I started to act and direct and produce theater there with other students and run a student theater company there. And so when I graduated with fellow Clarkies who we all felt we had a responsibility to challenge convention and change the world. And so with that responsibility that I felt to do some good in the world, I also knew that theater was the thing that I had the most fun doing. And so we as a group decided that the way we were going to challenge convention and change the world was to start a theater company with the focus of creating theater that was not just for wealthy, older, white people. That was going to be more inclusive and more representative of the people that we see in Boston, that the people that live in Boston. And so in the summer of '98, we started what was called the Island Project, where we went off to Great Diamond Island on the coast of Portland, Maine, and we created a show and brought it back down to Boston for a couple of weeks and brought it to New Haven because several of us had connections. And then we made not enough money to pay ourselves, but we did make enough money to pay the government. And so in the fall of '98, we applied for 501c3 status, or to be a not-for-profit organization. And so in the fall of '98, we became Company One Theater. And then our first production as Company One Theater was in the summer of '99. And so we've been doing this for 21 years since. And loving it and learning from it the whole way through. When we started out early in our careers in Boston theater, we became a resident theater at the Boston Center for the Arts. And the BCA, for parents that are around my age, might recognize the BCA, or the facade of it anyway, from the classic media examples of Extreme's Wholehearted music video, or the Danny DeVito and Martin Lawrence 2001 classic, What's the Worst That Could Happen, where in fact a Company One production poster was featured in a scene where Martin Lawrence was running down the street in the South End of Boston. Anyway, I digress. So the mission of Company One Theater is to build community at the intersection of art and social change, coming back to that challenging convention, changing the world concept. When we started out, we all did everything. So I acted, I directed, I built sets, I hung lights, I taught our classes, I put up promotional posters around the city. We did it all. Now, 21 years into the experience, my primary responsibility is to be the education director for the company. So we run an in-school program which offers 8 Boston public schools, mostly high schools, year-long residencies and theater classes. So that's either theater classes or theater integration into English as a second language classes. We also run an apprentice program, which is a summer jobs program for teenagers where they work at the theater and they learn not only theater management skills, but they also learn creative and transferable skills for life and for whatever job they decide to go into in the future. We also run a professional development for actors program, which is 8-week sessions of acting training for diverse cohorts of early career actors, getting them prepared for work in Boston as actors. Now, this season, in development are two other programs, a professional development for educators program and a touring program, a production touring program, both of which are designed to use theater for anti-racist work in schools. And so we're really excited about the potential of those programs and what they have to offer. Now, somewhere along the line, teaching also became a huge part of my career. So I actually think that I have two full-time jobs, one as a teacher and one as the education director for Company One. I teach in a high school just outside of Boston, and funnily enough, not sure if that's a word, oddly enough, or coincidentally, one of my colleagues at the school is also a Coginchaug alum, just about 5 or 6 years behind me. Anyway, at the school I teach 2 drama classes as well as a technical production, so lights, set, sound, and costumes. Oh, and I didn't mention that I also have a family and 2 kids and trying to live through a pandemic and teach through a pandemic and create theater through a pandemic. So, needless to say, I haven't slept much in the last 23 years, but to be totally frank with you, I cannot imagine doing anything better with my life. So thank you for taking the time to listen today. And by all means, if you're interested in reaching out, hearing more about what we do, what I do, and learning more about Boston, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find my email at the Company One website, www.companyone.org. And I look forward to hearing from you perhaps in the future. Again, thanks for listening and all the best of luck. Take care.
Hi, I'm Lana Gordon. I currently live in New York City. I am from the class of 1987. I was very fortunate to be the first show choir from Lisa Larson, and she really inspired me to follow my dreams. And I was on Broadway. My first big show was Lion King, original cast, 23 years ago. I've traveled around the world. I've been very fortunate to many shows in other languages. I did maybe about 5 shows in the German language. I spent 10 years overseas. I was fortunate enough to come back, return to New York City after 10 years, and land my dream role, one of my dream roles, as Velma Kelly in Chicago. And very fortunate that Lisa Larson was able to come and see me perform in this role, which was about 4 years ago. So Coginchaug has been really a real nice staple or start to my career here in New York City. I do have one wonderful memory of the Durham Fair, which is the fried dough with the tomato sauce. Love that. Yeah, so thank you, Coginchaug, for giving me a great foundation to my career that I am now part of. This is just my life. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Garrett Sheehan. I'm currently the president and CEO of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. I graduated from Coginchaug Regional High School back in 1996. Been asked to tell you a little bit about how I got into this position. It all did start at Coginchaug. I had a great experience in high school. When I was in high school, I decided that I wanted to be in broadcast journalism. I wanted to be a sports reporter or sportscaster, something along those lines. And I'll just say this about Coginchaug. I always felt like I had opportunities to do the things that I wanted to do, things that interested me. No one pushed me down and said, you can't do that. They just gave me opportunities. So one of the first things I did when I was in high school, I started talking to people that I wanted to be in broadcasting. So a friend of mine and we ended up being the morning address announcers. We turned it into a little bit of a radio show to make it fun and interesting and tell people what was going to happen for the next day. Somehow that also led to me reading off the names of all the players for the basketball games, doing the public address announcing at the games. And those were just great experiences that allowed me to feel comfortable and feel like I could actually do this. So I went off to college, went to Syracuse University, studied broadcast journalism, decided not to do sports, but instead do news. That then took me to Meridian, Mississippi and Huntsville, Alabama, where I pursued my broadcast television career. I was a TV news reporter at an ABC station and an NBC station. You learn so much doing those TV jobs, especially in very small markets. Gained a lot of experience, but I did always look back on my Coginchaug days fondly as part of the reason that I got into those positions. Another takeaway I'll just say about careers is things change, and as you kind of see where my career path went, I was doing broadcast journalism, having a good time, but just didn't feel like it was the job that I wanted to do forever. So while I was in the South doing TV, stumbled upon economic development, which is really how communities compete for jobs and businesses. Thought it was really interesting. I started doing a part-time job on the side while I was a TV news reporter, and that just set me up for my next job, which I stayed in the South and did economic development, trying to recruit and attract companies to northern Alabama, where I was. Eventually, a position opened up back in Connecticut. I was excited to go back, ended up in New Haven at United Illuminating, which is a utility in New Haven, electric and gas utility, doing economic development. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had. It felt great to be able to be in Connecticut, trying to keep jobs in Connecticut, attract jobs. Really enjoyed it. I will say though, life throws you curveballs. Met my wife, who is a doctor going through a residency at Yale New Haven Hospital. And so then her fellowship took us to Dallas, Texas. And during the course of that, I decided that I always had an interest in law. So I pursued a law degree while I was in Texas. It's actually from UConn, but I wrapped it up there. And then came back to Connecticut, stayed involved, clerked at the state appellate court. You can see this is a really long and winding career. Worked for Eversource, again, doing economic development. And then I ended up here in this job. And I really think that all of those things I just talked about put me in a position to be able to be successful and to be a good candidate for this position. As president CEO of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, we have a staff of 12 people. We cover 15 towns. We represent businesses all the way from very small businesses to technology, biotech companies, really exciting stuff. We try to advocate on behalf of those businesses, push for economic growth. But it's always fun to kind of think back that all started at Coginchaug. And I just would say it's the support that you get at Coginchaug. And I know that's still there today. I know some of the teachers that I had back when I went through high school are still teachers there. And their support really meant the world to me. It made me feel like I could do whatever I wanted to do. And who knows what will happen for me next in my career. I hope to stay in this position for a very long time. But I've always felt confident that whatever happened, I was equipped to be able to adjust and pursue the things that I wanted to. And learning really is a lifetime pursuit, and you keep on picking up new pieces of information along the road. And I think especially in this changing economy, that's what you need to be able to do, because the jobs of tomorrow are going to be different than the jobs that are there today. But if you're watching this video at Coginchaug, I hope you're doing well in school. Just realize that the world has a ton of choices of great jobs that you can do. Stick with it, and I know you're going to find something that you really like. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Dawn DeMeo, and I am a proud graduate of Coginchaug Regional High School class of 1990. And I know that they say everything you needed to ever learn, you learned in kindergarten. But I fully believe that everything I've ever used, I learned when I was at Coginchaug Regional High School. There are three main messages that I learned when I was at Coginchaug, and that is, number one, that the arts are so important. I was so lucky to have Miss Larson and Mr. Schmotlak as my chorus and band teachers all through middle school and high school. And everything I learned from them, I use all the time. I can't tell you how often I say cope and adjust from Miss Larson, more so in 2020 than ever. And all of the music skills that I learned at Coginchaug, I took forward when I went to college. I went to Bowdoin College and I studied theater there, and I also studied dance. And so I really brought the arts forward, knowing full well that I wanted to eventually become a teacher. And that's what I am. I teach high school at Cheshire High School in Cheshire, Connecticut, and I also direct the musicals at my high school. And every year I use all of the things that I learned from Miss Larson about music and performing, from show choir to just choral performance, and from Mr. Schmotlak, the importance of reading music and being able to connect with my musicians in my chorus. So I'm able to connect with them and use those musical skills to guide them and support them in our productions. The other thing that Coginchaug taught me was that it is really important that you don't have to be an expert at something to participate in it. Maybe like the benefit of being at a really small high school is I got to do a lot of different things. I always had an outlet. So even though I wasn't the best athlete, I played soccer, I was a cheerleader, and I also managed the softball team. And being able to do all of these different things meant that I knew I had an outlet. When I went forward into college, I was a coxswain for the crew team, and I really developed that program when I was there. They didn't really have a coxswain training program, and so I developed that when I was in college. And then as I've been out of college, I've really incorporated like athletic, sports into my life. I played soccer as an adult, but I also played soccer when I traveled and lived in Brazil, which was really nice to have that foundation, to be able to go to another country and to, maybe I didn't speak the language at the time, but I was able to like go out and play a game of soccer. And it was a way to connect with a culture that I was just learning about. In my adult life, I also do CrossFit. I dance salsa. I hike a lot. That has led to my travel, like a passion for like going to other countries. I travel a lot with my students as well as on my own. I've been to over 18 different countries. And a lot of that has to do with athletic endeavors. 2 years ago, I went to Kilimanjaro and hiked Mount Kilimanjaro with a team, and it was an amazing experience. And so everything that the foundation of balancing out my life with the arts and with athletics, I really was established at Coginchaug Regional High School. I think the last thing that I learned is that it is really important to be involved. I learned a lot at Coginchaug about how to be part of a team, how to be part of a group, and how to collaborate with others to get things done. As a teacher, that's really, really important. As a director, that's really, really important. I know very well to turn to the people who are experts in their crafts to support me as I'm creating a vision that is larger than what I know how to make myself. But I was taught that humility, and I saw my teachers working together. And so I know the importance of working as part of a community. And I definitely learned that at Coginchaug Regional High School. I think the other thing that I have as a strong, fond memory of CRHS is being part of the scholarship committee. And the scholarship committee raised money for scholarships for Coginchaug. And we always had like the best activities. There was a great event that they ran at Wesleyan. And I remember Mr. Kusarides' band used to play. And I learned a lot about giving back to my community and to being part of something bigger and knowing that you needed to contribute to that. We also always had a booth at the Durham Fair. And honestly, my fondest memories at the Durham Fair were just being in that booth and feeling like I was contributing to something. So I use every day as a teacher all of the skills that I learned as a student at Coginchaug Regional High School. I'm an English teacher, and I still have the notebooks from my classes with Mrs. Kolenko and Mrs. Luckenbach and Mr. Seibel. Everything that they taught me, I have brought forward into my career, and I try to pass on to my students as well. So thanks, CRHS, for being the foundation that I needed for my success. I hope all of the students who graduate this year know that they are in great company and people who have fond memories of their experiences at CRHS. Thanks so much for this opportunity, and good luck. Congratulations, class of 2021.
Hello, students of Coginchaug Regional High School. This is Brendan Wenzel, a 1999 graduate of Coginchaug. And before we kick things off here, I would like to acknowledge two things. So I live in an apartment building, so you're going to hear two fun sounds throughout this entire chat. First, right on cue, is the S-Train subway line, which pretty much drives you right through my kitchen, so that kind of alarming, unsettling rumble. That's the S-Train. There's not an earthquake. Be calm. The second sound you will hear is somebody off in my building somewhere who is just doing some hammering right now. It's the middle of the day. Why not? So we're going to live with these sounds. They're going to be part of this whole experience. And yeah, let's get ready. So I'm in Brooklyn. And Brooklyn is actually the city that I moved to when I left Durham. So I moved to Brooklyn to go to art school. About like a mile that way, which is north, is the Pratt Institute, which is the school that I graduated from in 2003. And I went to the Pratt Institute because I wanted to become an illustrator, which is what I do for a living today. So I make books for kids. That's usually what I do with my illustrations. I do odd projects from time to time, but primarily I make books for kids. If you are a first grader or a fourth grader, which I'm almost certain you are not, but that would be the ideal age that you would want to read the books that I make. But I am a firm believer that picture books are for everybody, so I hope you will enjoy them and folks of all ages could enjoy the books that I create. So I work on books for other people as an illustrator. So I draw pictures to accompany other people's words, which is a really fun part of the job because I sort of get to step, there's that hammering. It's a fun part of the job because I get to step outside of myself, explore somebody else's space, spend time with their thoughts and their ideas, and it's a nice opportunity to grow and to kind of be curious. The other type of book that I work on are the books that I write and I illustrate. I've always drawn. I drew from a very young age, but it's been a little more difficult for me to find my voice as an author, to figure out how I can take the ideas up in my head and to sort of share them with other people, so I feel like I'm communicating them in a way that feels sort of authentic and successful. One of the really fun things about picture books is you have pictures and you have words, right? Which sounds very simple, but there's all kinds of really cool things you can do, playing them off each other, bouncing off one another, just exploring how words and pictures interact with each other in all these different ways. And for me, that's also been a really nice tool for making sense of a lot of things that I've sort of thought about or been curious about over the years, interests that I have, like wildlife, animals, perspective and point of view. Anything that I'm reading about and learning about, I can sort of explore in an even more in-depth way by making a book about whatever that subject matter may be. So that's another really, really sort of enriching and gratifying part of making books. So I feel incredibly lucky that I'm an illustrator, that I get to spend most of my days drawing. And I should also be honest about the fact that being a freelance artist is not always fantastic. There are a lot of peaks and there are a lot of valleys, and I've been working in sort of various kind of creative fields for almost 2 decades now, and I think it brings me a little bit of comfort to look back and realize that a lot of the times throughout my career and my life that have felt the most uncertain and have felt, I guess, might be the scariest, to be honest, have also been the times that have been the most creatively inspiring. And so, I believe you all are going to be graduating at least sometime soon, and so I hope you find, I understand the world is a pretty wild place here in 2020, but I hope I wish you all the best, and I hope it brings a little bit of comfort to you to know that at least within my very limited experience, that some of the times that have been, at least career-wise, the most difficult have also been the time periods that I think have made me a better illustrator, and helped me understand everything just a little bit more clearly. So Godspeed, best of luck, and thank you for having me with you here today. All right, take care, bye. I almost forgot to mention, my mom is Mrs. Wenzel, who is an art teacher at Coginchaug. She's like the best art teacher of all time. Maybe some of you had her. Thought it might be relevant. She's the best. You're the best. Have a great day. Bye.
Hi there, my name is Wendy Peterson-Manamite, and I'm a 1979 graduate of Coginchaug High School. And as such, the Connecticut Valley Education Foundation has asked me to share some thoughts on my life, my passions, and I guess my beloved community. So I feel incredibly fortunate to have been raised in Durham. Our roots began as my grandparents immigrated from Denmark and set foot here to raise a family and to have their dairy farm here. And of course, equestrian studies was big. So those grandparents are really responsible for our love of agriculture and particularly the Durham Fair. My grandfather was superintendent of the horse show, which I wish we'd get back, and the maintenance department, which now my brother is in charge of 60 years later. So interesting enough, though, for my grandpa Chris, he was also on the building committee for the original corn school. So that has a place in my heart. I attended college and worked, and I'm currently working as a state regulator for the Connecticut Insurance Department. I really enjoy it, and I'm also an elected official with the town of Durham as the treasurer. Happily married Glenn, who came from the big city of Middletown, and together we raised a wonderful son named Chris. He found and loved and married this wonderful young lady, Amanda, from Middlefield. And together they have a beautiful, as I should say, so myself, granddaughter Zoe. They live in South Carolina, where my son is a math teacher, elementary school math teacher. So I'm really happy the paths that have taken them on their way, and can't wait to see them soon. I also proudly served as a principal and a teacher representative for the search committee for District 13. I've been able to coach and sit on many boards and taught junior achievement. I've also was very proud of our work as a team to lead the centennial or tercentennial for the town of Durham celebration. That was really fun, a lot of work, took a couple of years, but it was really gratifying. But most of all, my roots bring me to the Durham Fair, because the Durham Fair's mission is to protect and preserve agriculture and to help the community and the nonprofits. I'm thinking, where else can you volunteer for one event, just one event, and help all those people, all those organizations, and have fun doing it? Never mind the lifelong friends that I've met. So don't discount the multitude of skill sets that you can use when you volunteer as well. I've been able to work on my budget reviews, contracts, and working with people, public speaking. So you do learn a lot when you volunteer for your inner self. So just remember to balance your life well between work, between education, family. Family's always first. But you can do it if you balance it properly. Just give everything life gives you, give it a chance and make it better. So I just want to thank the Connecticut Valley, Coginchaug Valley Education Foundation. I made him a new name. So thank you very much, and bring back the trivia contest.
Hi, my name is Michael Berra. I graduated from Coginchaug in 2004, and since then, I've made my career as an actor. I've had the opportunity to appear on TV shows like Blue Bloods, Gotham, and Law and Order, in movies like The Amazing Spider-Man, and most recently on Broadway in A Bronx Tale the Musical. Now, I knew early on that I wanted to go into acting, 5th grade to be exact. So, I started looking around for any possible opportunity that I could take to practice and learn and get better. I think that's the most important thing with whatever you want to go into, is to fully commit to it and work as hard as you can. And hey, if you don't know what you want to do yet, pick something, try it out. And if you don't like it, pick something else and try it. I think that's the most fun thing about being where you're at right now, is you get to decide what your future holds. And if you work super hard, your dreams can come true. So I decided I wanted to be an actor. So I started taking all those opportunities. And by the time I got to Coginchaug, it was cemented. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I took anything I could at Coginchaug to keep practicing. I did show choir. I did chorus. I took drama. I took Shakespeare with Miss Maddie. I took film. Anything there was that was in any way related to acting or the performing arts, I did. And then after Coginchaug, I went to college for acting, because no matter what field you go into, you can never stop learning and getting better. I went to SUNY Purchase, which has an acting conservatory. And when I left SUNY Purchase, I dove right into my career. I went out on the national tour of Man of La Mancha, playing Sancho Panza. So it's been a lot of fun. But this career isn't all fun and games and easy. It's not something you go into just for money and fame, because those things don't come easy. It is a lot of work. Frankly, there are a lot more heartaches than there are triumphs. I've had my fair share of restaurant gigs and survival jobs, but you know what? Scrubbing those pots in the back of that restaurant make the moments when Robert De Niro is hugging you at the opening night of your Broadway debut a lot sweeter. I knew that those survival jobs were only a means to an end. They were just to pay my bills to get me to the next acting gig, because we have to do anything we can to achieve our goals. And you know what? The next acting gig came. So I started 2020 with my next 3 shows lined up, one of which was possibly going to take me to Broadway again. I was so excited. I was in rehearsals for Sister Act the Musical, the first of those 3 shows, when the pandemic hit. And it sent us all into this uncertain future where we really don't know what the next day is going to hold. And sure, it got me bummed for a while. And I started losing hope. But then I realized that this is going to end. And I have to stay sharp and ready for when we can get back to work. So I started looking around for any opportunity I can find to stay sharp and stay active and stay acting. And that brought me to an amazing opportunity to work with students in Peru, teaching them a virtual acting class. So that's what I've been doing during this pandemic to keep myself busy and focused. And those students are incredible. It was such an inspiration to me. I knew that I wanted to stay sharp on my microphone to do voiceovers and stuff. So I started a podcast about baseball from around the world, just so I could practice, talking into my mic a little more and editing the audio. So I'm finding these ways to stay active through all that. And I guess that's what I want to say to you is, this is gonna end. We're gonna get through this together, but there's no reason that this has to be wasted time. So figure out what you want to do and get to work, because there's always something we could be doing to further ourselves and get closer to our goals. So thanks for listening, and I wish you all a happy and healthy future.
Hello, it's me again. Thank you so much for joining our watch party. I think after hearing these presentations that many of us might feel a little more optimistic about our collective futures. If you're interested in learning more about what our organization does, check out our website at www.coginchaugvef.org and see what we've been up to. If you care to make a donation, no matter how small, it will help us continue the good work that we do in the communities of Middlefield and Durham. And finally, on behalf of all of the volunteers at CVEF, we sincerely hope that you and your loved ones continue to remain safe, vigilant, and healthy during this holiday season. Thank you so much again for joining us this evening. Stay well.